Hello, amazing people. Welcome back to another episode of Dean and Gertie Explore the World. My name is Jeff. This is my lovely, talented, and amazing wife, Monica. And today we are
in Hohenwald, Tennessee at the Lewis County Natural History Museum.
It's a mouthful.
It is.
But I'll tell you what, this place, you're going to want to stick around because it's probably one of the craziest and strangest natural history museums we've ever seen. So yeah, stick around. We'll talk about it afterwards, and we'll see you in a minute.
To Washington, D.C. The reasons for the trip depend on who you listen to as far as the history is concerned. He had been made the governor of the Louisiana Territory. He had been told to give away the land. Just make them a deed, give the people the land. He found out that some of his underlings were selling the land. And with him, he had proof of that. And he could have been going to D.C. for that. Also, a new administration had taken over after Jefferson died. And they didn't want to give him the last of the money for the trip west, which was wrong, but needless to say, he was going to D.C. to see if he could get that taken care of. Maybe and maybe not, who knows. Anyway, when he got to Grinder's Stand, and late in the afternoon, he was feeling pretty bad. And he went out to she put him in a cabin that was away from her cabin like they did at the time. And he went to sleep. He had had malaria. When you have malaria, you're fine one day, and the next day you're flat on your back. Mm-hmm. So that very well could have been what was wrong with him. He arrived by himself. He was traveling with an Indian guide and a personal servant. They didn't come on until sometime during the night. And when they did, they were put up in the barn because they were less than noble people, And local history says that during the night, Mr. Grinder came in, and Mrs. Grinder told him that there's men out in the cabin and he made passing her. He was a mean old man, so he got his gun and he said, well, I'll take care of him. And he went out to the cabin, and she heard 2 shots. And he came back in and told her he had killed one of the most famous men in the United States at the time. However, the next morning, the good feller that he was, he came to town and told the local people that Lewis had killed himself. That's where local history says the story comes from. Now, you can believe what you want to believe. The official story is that he killed himself. It did not matter how he died. He was dead. And when the tales got to Thomas Jefferson, he said, it doesn't matter what happened. He said, I could launch an investigation. He still had money at the time. And he said, I could launch an investigation, and it would go on 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, all that we would still know is that he was dead. The man's dead. Let's go on. Mm-hmm. And so that's why that was left as the story. He did carry with him 2 guns that would have been similar to that. And they were always carried loaded. It is theoretically possible that
He shot himself.
He shot himself twice, which is what she heard, and maybe he didn't, maybe her husband didn't, who knows?
Yeah.
However, a few months after Lewis died, the Grinders wound up over in an adjoining county, and they had money, and they had never had anything in their lives. They were killed for the money.
Maddox was not your typical businessman. Sure, he took over his father's company during the Great Depression, built a financial empire, and helped create what would later become Ford Motor Credit. But let's be real, what Dan really liked, what he loved doing, was going on safari. Starting in 1949, Dan dedicated 1 month every year to chasing adventure around the globe. Over his lifetime, he went on more than 80 safaris, 27 in Africa, 5 in India, 2 in Mongolia, and even 1 in Afghanistan. He didn't just stick to lions and elephants either. He tracked the Marco Polo sheep in Iran, dodged man-eating Bengal tigers in India, and hunted all kinds of quirky creatures most of us only see in wildlife documentaries. But here is the twist to Dan's story. He was more than just a hunter, he was a conservationist. This is way before it was trendy. Every animal he hunted was carefully selected. Old males past their breeding prime who had been kicked out of the herd. His philosophy, keep the balance of nature intact while sharing the thrill of the hunt. And guess what? It paid off. He snagged the Winchester and Weatherby Awards and was inducted into the Hunting Hall of Fame, and he became a legend in the world of wildlife. By the 1970s, Dan and his wife Margaret had a collection so massive it ranked 4th largest in the Western Hemisphere. But instead of keeping it locked away, they decided to share their quirky treasure trove with the world. In 1989, they opened a museum in Hohenwald, Tennessee, a place where visitors could stare down the man-eating tiger, marvel at the Marco Polo sheep, or hear stories about their wildest expeditions. But Dan and Margaret didn't stop there. They had even bigger dreams for the collection. A sprawling, immersive museum where visitors could explore simulated African plains, Arctic tundras, and even Tennessee forests. Picture this: helicopter rides, simulated of course, natural trails, and enough stuffed animals to make sure taxidermists blush. Sadly, Dan and Margaret's lives were cut short in a boating accident before their vision could be fully realized. But the quirky legacy still lives on. The Maddox Foundation and the people of Hohenwald have kept the collection alive, turning it into the centerpiece for education and conservation. Dan Maddox wasn't just a hunter or a businessman. He was a storyteller, a conservationist, and honestly, a guy who probably had the quirkiest hobby in Tennessee. And his story is still inspiring adventurers and raising eyebrows today.
Welcome back, everybody. We are going to talk to you a little bit as we walk. We are at the campground. We are searching for our kids. We had a little bit of a rainstorm this morning or this afternoon. So kids, as soon as it stopped raining, they wanted to run outside and play in the rain and stomp around in the mud and all that fun stuff. So I'm sure we'll stumble on them at some point in time in our little adventure here, but tell us, what did you think about the Lewis County Natural History Museum? I thought it was a bit strange. And I'll be honest, there's a bunch of stuff that I did not put in the video because the museum itself was very disjointed.
I don't know that I would call it disjointed.
No?
No, I don't think I would. What they did was they took all of the history of Hohenwald, Tennessee, what made Tennessee, this part of Tennessee, important, from Lewis and Clark to the settler time to the Dutch people that came, and they tried to tell the story of everybody that made Hohenwald. And
yeah,
I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of expressing who they were and what made them special and unique. And
no, I think you're absolutely right.
I think the taxidermy part is gonna throw some people for a bit of a loop.
Hey,
but
4th
we
largest
didn't do it.
in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that was pretty cool.
And the Maddox Foundation allowing the town to still use that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like it or not, it's something that is a part of history, you know?
Yeah.
And these people spend
It
a lot of
needs
time
a little work,
conserving.
though, I'll tell you. So the stuff is really old, and you can tell that it's been
It's been on display for
quite yeah, exactly, quite some time, sorry. So, man, you know, if anybody knows anything about that stuff, it's probably deteriorating rather quickly, and I don't know that it'll be around unless somebody that really knows what they're doing is going to be able to come in there and help them out. But it's a very, very small
I don't think we
museum.
would have known about it if this other people in Hohenwald had said you should go there and check it out. I think it's one of those things that we probably would have missed.
Oh,
And that would have
absolutely.
been really kind of sad because as weird as it was fun. It was something different,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and you know, the one cool thing right off the bat, as soon as you walk in, they have this big Meriwether Lewis display. So if you watched the previous video where we talked about Meriwether Lewis and his untimely demise as to whether or not it was murder or suicide.
Oh, the controversy.
The townsfolk there in Hohenwald, 100% murder.
Yeah.
And you kind of heard her, I cannot remember her name for the life of me, so you'll have to forgive me on that. And we did not get her name because everything happened so quickly for us that day. And I feel bad that I didn't, but she was so awesome. She literally walked us around the whole museum.
Explaining everything.
Literally everything,
Great.
yeah. There were some very cute little things that were there. There was a little cabin that you walked in, you pushed a button, and it kind of talked about what was in the cabin, and it talked about the bed that was made. Again, it was very weird. Just this one little 10 by 10 room that was designed as a cabin.
Yeah.
From the 1800s, and not everything in there was, or I guess it was 1700s, 1800s, but not everything was properly dated. So there were some things that were kind of like, maybe shouldn't have been there at that time.
They had no iPads though, so it's okay.
Yeah, there weren't any
No,
iPads.
and there weren't any docking stations, so everybody calm down. It's fine.
They had a little tunnel that was carved out that was like a cave that you went in, and it was to simulate the phosphate mining. So evidently there in that community, there was huge phosphate mines. And so that was a big part of what built that community. So they had this ledger that talked about everybody that had worked, had all their hours. I mean, this thing was old. So it was really cool to kind of see that they had preserved that stuff.
And they also talked about the Dutch settlers who came to the area and how they made their mark on this part of Tennessee, and how, what was it, needlepoint and different kinds of crafts and just all of the beautiful things that they brought from their home country to Hohenwald when they became, when they came over here for work. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that our kids got to see that, because it's just something that is interesting to see those little marks kind of ticking off what makes a place a place. What makes it
for sure.
special.
I mean, we would have totally missed it had we not went to a couple of other places there in town, and we had a couple people tell us that if we hadn't been there, that we should maybe go check it out. We got a car coming here, so we got to kind of move over. The thing was about the place is that it's not open on regular hours, so it's like there's weird hours. It's run by volunteers, so you got to kind of be cross over here. You kind of maybe got to call ahead just to see if there's somebody even in there.
Yeah.
We were like a block down the road, so we just decided to walk down there, and lo and behold, there ended up being this most amazing gal there, and she was fantastic and read all kinds of stuff to us and talked to the kids about all of the things that were in the museum, and some of it was even donated by her great grandmother.
Yeah. It was really amazing.
Their names were in the ledger for the phosphate museum, sorry, not phosphate museum, the phosphate mine. So that was pretty cool. But, you know, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
The massive tusks that
The
were
massive tusks.
Okay, so it's not.
There wasn't an elephant head there in the thing,
No.
which I was surprised. But she did tell me that at one point in time they did have two of them, but they have been put into storage or something along those lines because they are in massive disrepair.
Yeah.
So again, the place needs a little bit of help as far as like maybe fixing up some of the taxidermy that they have there. I don't even know if it's possible to do it, but it seems like it's such an amazing space.
And if not, maybe there's another way that they could tell the story of Mr. Maddox and how he lived his life and what made him and his wife, Margaret, so interesting. So,
Right.
you know, who knows how it's going to change in the future, but that was a really cool situation for us to be able to
Yeah.
share that with our
And
kids.
it's really unfortunate because when you read the ideas and the thoughts that he had about making this museum and the safari and the simulated helicopter rides and all that stuff, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like the guy had some really cool vision. I wish it could come to life, but you know, Hohenwald is a very, very small town, and I know without some sort of financial contribution, there's just no way that they're going to be able to afford that.
Yep.
We're going
Look
to kind
who
of
we
pause.
found.
We found somebody here.
Knock, knock.
Little pig, let me in. Don't make me huff and puff and blow your house in. What are you doing in here, dude?
Playing Five Nights at Freddy's.
I'm playing Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't even know what that means or what game that
It's
is.
a video game. If you actually know
No, okay. Video game, Five Nights at Freddy's. And then we got the girls over here. Miss Gertie hanging out with her friend Violet. Gertie Goo.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Destroying her new flip flops.
Broccoli. Don't eat the broccoli.
Don't eat it.
Nom nom nom. All right. We're going to continue walking. Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, there you have it.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I think, the museum was fun. I would probably go back again just to kind of look at some of the stuff. They had another part that I wish I would have been recording a little bit more, but I had stopped at one point. And then she took us into this other room that wasn't really noticeable, but it was full of taxidermy birds, like hundreds of birds. And I didn't have my phone or my camera on me at that point, but that was very interesting. And then they had a whole nother room that was full of like, I don't even know if you call it taxidermy, but they were frames, picture frames, and then in each picture frame it had a plant, a flower, a weed, all kinds of crazy stuff like in that. And then they had this egg collection. How many eggs? There had to
was a lot of them.
There had to have been 5,000 eggs in this. Maybe not
A lot
that
of them
many.
were donations. So, say somebody in the town was a collector of the eggs, for example, and then passed away, and the family was like, well, what are we going to do with all of this? They donated it to this museum, which
Yeah.
is really freaking smart.
Yeah, the egg
because it's all
thing
right
was
there.
actually donated by somebody that made it for
They had
a
a photography
school
donation,
project.
which was like old
Yeah.
cameras.
That's what
from,
I'm
like,
saying.
the
Like
turn
this
of the
museum was
century.
very weird. And I'd say disjointed, but she says
I
otherwise.
think it was pretty cool.
But so then you go into this other space and they've got like all these cameras from throughout time, which
Yeah.
was kind of cool.
Really cool.
But I don't know
'Cause you
where it
think
really
about
where it fit
His
into
camera right now
it.
is on one arm of his body. The other cameras that they had were like huge boxes on tripods, and I was like,
It was cool to see some of
to
the old
explain
cameras
that
though.
to the kids was pretty cool.
I was kind of into that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't really know how it fit there with the community.
If somebody
Um,
has one of those block phones from the 80s. You should put it in a box and send it to this museum because they need one
Right.
because they're missing it.
Exactly.
But no, they were awesome. Super, super fun. I just thought it was fun. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. I would definitely go back.
I'm kind of a dork because I like talking to that lady. And
All in all, we had a lot of fun there in Hohenwald. There was, between this place,
a lot of history
the Elephant Discovery Center, and the Elephant Sanctuary.
But there's like musical history there too.
Oh yeah, there was a little blues trail thing that went through the town where you learned about some blues artists that performed there.
I didn't get to do any of that stuff.
No, we didn't really have a whole lot of time. We were kind of bouncing around between a couple of other parks and other things, and school and work and everything else that we do. But
Adulting.
yeah, life. Anyways, hey, hope you enjoyed that one.
Tell us what you think. Tell us, would you go to that museum and what you thought about all of this stuff? And, give us an idea of what you guys thought.
Somebody that could help them with that taxidermy? Just saying. Like, there were some pieces that were in some rough shape, but it was still really cool. Hey, y'all. As always, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, ring that bell, all that stuff that you have to do.
Never stop exploring, even if it's weird.
Yeah. Explore the weird stuff. That's the stuff that, makes the world go round.
Yeah. And we had it all to ourselves.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was cool. We were the only ones there.
Yeah.
So, anyways, y'all, peace. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.